I shared my fries with her. Now the alien girl growls if anyone comes close. The last thing Kale expected after his derelict salvage skiff coughed its last breath over this godforsaken magnetic desert was to share a meal with a local, much less have it turn into this. He'd managed to scavenge some edible nutrient paste blocks and, blessedly, a vintage pack of synth fries from a wrecked cargo hauler, half buried in the rust-red sand. He'd been sitting against a jagged rock formation, watching the twin suns bleed purple into the horizon, when she appeared, tall, lean, encased in segmented dark gray armor that seemed to ripple faintly in the dying light. Her headpiece was avian-like, streamlined, covering most of her face except for sharp, golden eyes that tracked his every move. He'd held up the pack of synth fries, more as a gesture of "don't shoot, I'm just eating," than actual hospitality. To his surprise, she hadn't blasted him. She'd approached, helmet retracting with a soft hiss to reveal a face of sharp angles, delicate-looking membranes around her eyes, and a mouth that was a thin, stern line. Her skin was a deep, earthy brown, marked with subtle patterns that pulsed with a faint, internal light as she moved. And below her throat, two distinct nodes hummed, a low resonance that vibrated in the air. He'd offered the fries again. She'd taken one, examined it, then eaten it with slow, deliberate movements. It was then, as he reached for another fry for himself, that it happened. A low growl, deep and guttural, vibrated from her chest, amplified slightly by those humming nodes. Her golden eyes narrowed, fixated on his hand reaching for the communal food source. It wasn't a warning, it was ownership. He froze, hand hovering. "Okay, easy there, big guy," he'd murmured, though she clearly wasn't a guy. "Just getting my own damn fry." The growl intensified, a sound that promised ripped throats and shattered bones. It was possessive, protective. About the fries? He'd thought, bewildered. But it wasn't just about the fries. As the first distant screams echoed across the wasteland, the sound of energy weapons and panic shouts, she didn't just look at the source of the noise, she looked at him. Then, impossibly, she placed a hand, armored fingers flexing, on his chest. Not pushing, claiming. The humming in her throat nodes rose in pitch, a warning siren only he seemed to trigger. He was a smart-ass scavenger, not a diplomat. "What the actual fuck was that?" he muttered, scrambling back as she abruptly stood, armor snapping into a more aggressive posture. She pointed a sharp-taloned finger towards the source of the commotion, her voice a low, resonant frequency, devoid of warmth. "Threat. Yours. Mine. You come." Not a question. An order. And the growling didn't stop. It was now a continuous, low thrum, directed outwards at the approaching danger, but anchored to him. He was suddenly, terrifyingly, hers. Whatever sharing those damn fries had done, it had turned him into her property, and trespassers were about to learn why that was a bad idea. He didn't have time to process the sheer absurdity of the situation. The sounds were getting closer. He scrambled to his feet, grabbing his worn blaster. "Mine? The hell I am! You just ate my snacks." She didn't answer, her gaze fixed on the horizon, body coiled and ready. The humming nodes vibrated faster, sending a strange resonance through the ground he stood on. He was trapped between incoming death and whatever the hell this terrifying alien woman now thought he was to her. His options were limited. Run from the proven threat towards the unknown consequences of her claim, or stand here and get vaporized. The growling intensified, a clear imperative, survival instinct, honed by years of scraping by on the fringes, kicked in. He didn't like being owned, especially by a creature who growled over snack food, but he liked dying even less. He followed her. Following her meant sprinting across jagged terrain, the magnetic pull of the embedded relics in the sand making his boots heavy. The growling alien, who still hadn't given him a name, or maybe the growl was his name now, moved with predatory grace, her armor seeming to flow around her limbs. The sound of fighting grew louder, closer. Definitely energy weapons, some heavy ordnance by the sound of those explosions. "Who the hell are they?" Kale yelled over the wind in the persistent hum from her throat nodes. She glanced back, those golden eyes holding a fierce, cold intelligence. Outsiders seek prey. Simple, direct, unhelpful. Prey? I? Dinas? Me? She stopped abruptly, pivoting to face him. Her armored hand clamped onto his arm, surprisingly gentle for the force it could obviously exert, yet utterly immovable. The humming nodes resonated against his skin through his worn flight suit sleeve. You claimed. Marked by sharing. Protected. She stated it like a biological fact, like saying the sky was blue. He felt a jolt, not just from the physical contact, but from the sheer, absolute conviction in her voice. Marked by sharing my fries? He sputtered, incredulous. That's scary. Not how bonding works where I'm from. We, usually date first? Maybe a few drinks? Definitely no growling. She tilted her head, the subtle bioluminescent patterns under her skin near her throat nodes brightening slightly. Date? Drink? Inefficient. Sharing sustenance is declaration. Claiming. You accepted. You are of my proximity. My protection. Threat to you is threat to me. Her grip tightened, just enough to let him know she wasn't kidding. He tried to pull away, frustration boiling. Look, I appreciate unsolicited protection detail, but I don't want to be of your proximity. I just wanted to find some salvage and get off this rock. The growl returned, low and dangerous, aimed not at him, but seemingly reinforcing her statement to him. It felt like a physical assertion of will, vibrating through his bones. The ground shuddered. A beam of crimson energy lanced across the sky nearby, followed by the sound of metal screaming as something large crashed down. Okay, protection accepted. For now, he conceded, realizing, arguing cultural mating customs mid-firefight was probably a bad survival strategy. She nodded once, a sharp, decisive motion, and released his arm. Good. Run. She turned and continued her swift pace, never looking back, trusting he would follow. He did. What choice did he have? The Xeno mercenaries weren't picky about their targets, and this growling alien seemed his only shield. He risked a glance back, saw figures silhouetted against the fiery wreck in the distance, moving towards them. They were armed, armored, and they looked like they meant business. He picked up his pace, sticking close to his self-appointed fry-induced guardian, his heart hammered against his ribs, part fear, part adrenaline, part sheer mind-boggling disbelief at the situation. This was either the start of the worst day of his life or the most insane meet-cute in the history of the galaxy. He had a sneaking suspicion it was both. They scrambled down into a series of deep, narrow canyons etched into the magnetic rock. The air grew colder, carrying the scent of minerals and something else, something sharp and alien that Kale couldn't place. The humming from the alien's throat nodes seemed to deepen here. Resonating with the rock walls, she moved with unnerving silence, her armored form a shadow against the darker stone. He, on the other hand, felt clumsy and loud, his boots crunching on the gravel. So, is this normal for your people? He whispered, trying to keep his voice low. You know, food sharing equals ownership thing? She stopped, turning slowly. The subtle bioluminescence on her skin flared, casting an eerie glow in the dim canyon. Normal? Her voice was a low hum overlaid with sharp consonants. It is instinct, primal. Sharing of life source solidifies bond proximity. Old ways. Before high structure. High structure? Sounded like alien bureaucracy. Okay, so I'm bonded to you because I gave you a fried potato stick? His sarcasm earned him a low growl vibrating through the canyon walls. Not stick. Sustenance. Shared. Consumed together. Signifies willingness to merge resources. Trust. Foundation of claiming. Strongest bond. She stepped closer, and despite the armor, he felt the heat radiating from her. Her golden eyes, amplified by the dim light, seemed to pierce through him. She reached out, placing a hand on his cheek. Her skin was surprisingly smooth against his, the faintest vibration coming from her fingertips. You are protected by my form, by my will. Threat does not touch what is mine. It wasn't just words. He felt it, a weird pressure behind his eyes, a warm thrumming resonance that mirrored her throat nodes. It was possessive, yes, but also fiercely protective. It felt like an ancient lock clicking into place. He swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. This wasn't just a cultural quirk. This was biology, hardwired, and he was suddenly very aware of the physical disparity between them. Her armor, her obvious strength, the implied lethality in her every movement. He was a scrawny human scavenging leftovers. Right. Mine, he repeated, the word feeling strange and heavy on his tongue. Look, I get the whole you saved me from ray guns thing, and I appreciate it, really. But claiming? Is there a return policy on this bond? A trial period? Another low growl, this one carrying a distinct note of warning. She leaned closer, her face inches from his. He could see the intricate patterns under her skin pulsing, faster now. No return, no trial, bond forms. It is like gravity, or need for air. Her gaze dropped to his mouth, lingered there for a fraction of a second, then lifted back to his eyes. Now we hide. They seek. She pulled her hand away, the warmth lingering on his cheek. She turned and moved deeper into the canyon maze, the humming a constant guide. He followed, his mind reeling. Bond, gravity, need for air, all because of a goddamn fry? He risked a glance back the way they came. He could see the glow of searchlights sweeping over the canyon rims above. They were definitely being hunted, and the alien considered him part of her horde. This was beyond surreal, it was terrifyingly, erotically absurd. He could feel the invisible leash tightening, the strange resonance between them growing stronger with every step. They found a small hidden cave entrance tucked behind a curtain of magnetically charged sand. Inside, the air was still, blessedly free from the howling wind and the faint, metallic tang of the air outside. It was cramped, just enough space for them to sit huddled together, the alien's armor scraping softly against the rock wall. The humming from her throat nodes was lower here, a comforting thrum in the confined space, though it still felt possessive. Cal leaned back, running a hand over his face. Okay. Deep breaths. We're in a cave, with my new owner, who growls and thinks we're married because I shared a snack. She sat opposite him, removing her headpiece completely this time, revealing more of her sharp features and intricate bioluminescent patterns that now pulsed softly in the darkness, casting shifting shadows. Her golden eyes were unblinking, watching him with intense focus. Not married, she corrected, her voice a low resonance that seemed to fill the small space. Claimed, bound, protective unit. Right, sorry, my bad. Subtle difference, he grumbled. So, protective unit, what exactly does that entail? Do I get dental? A low growl, a flicker of the light under her skin, near her mouth. Definitely not amused. Entails proximity, shared survival, defense against threat, procreation. Cale froze. Whoa, hold on. Procreation. He hadn't factored that into the claim status. We shared fries, not bodily fluids. That's a whole other level. Her head tilted again, the light patterns shifting. Sharing sustenance establishes biological compatibility. Resonance. Bond facilitates procreation, necessary for species continuation. She said, it with the same flat certainty as describing the weather. He stared at her, dumbfounded. This was insane. This was utterly, completely, unequivocally bonkers. Biological compatibility? Resonance? With me? I'm human. You're whatever you are. We're not exactly built for the same assembly line. Another low growl, slightly higher in pitch this time, almost. Challenging? Compatibility confirmed by bond formation. Resonance established. Your form is different, but viable. Adaptable. She reached out, slow and deliberate, and her armored fingers traced the line of his jaw. The humming increased, and the strange pressure behind his eyes returned, stronger now. It felt like she was scanning him, assessing him on a fundamental level. Interesting resilience. Small, yet durable. Durable. He felt like a fragile teacup next to her armored bulk. Her touch was still gentle, but the power simmering beneath it was palpable. His breath hitched. This wasn't just conversation. This felt like preamble. Okay, okay, let's just pump the brakes on the whole procreation thing. All right, he said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the sudden heat rising in his chest. We're kind of in the middle of a manhunt here. Maybe we should focus on not dying first? Her fingers paused on his jaw, her thumb brushing his lower lip. The golden eyes held his, intense and unreadable. Survival is first imperative. Procreation is second. Instinct dictates priority. She leaned closer, her alien scent filling his senses. Something like ozone and dry earth, with a hint of something musky and warm. The humming vibrated through his entire body now. She wasn't just stating facts. She was feeling them, and she was making him feel them too. He could feel the pull, the strange resonance, responding to her proximity. It was terrifying. And in his current state of stress and adrenaline, perversely arousing, he was trapped in a cave with a growling alien warrior who thought sharing fries was a marriage contract and was now discussing their biological compatibility for breeding. This was going to be a long night. The air in the small cave grew thick with unspoken tension. The humming from the alien's throat nodes was a constant presence, a low thrum that wrapped around him. He watched her, her golden eyes reflecting the faint glow of the bioluminescent patterns on her skin. She hadn't moved since her declaration about procreation, simply watching him, her expression unreadable. Kale shifted, trying to find a less awkward position in the cramped space. He started, then stopped. What did you even talk about with a creature who considered you property due to a snack? Those guys out there, the ones chasing you, and now me. Who are they? She finally spoke, her voice low and resonant. The harvesters, flesh traders. Seek, valuable specimens. She paused, her gaze sweeping over him, especially those with unique resonance patterns, or bonded individuals. His stomach dropped. Bonded individuals? You mean, us? They're specifically looking for us, because we're claimed? A low growl, possible. Bonded resonance is powerful, can be exploited, or sold. My kind do not permit claim to be taken. Her jaw tightened, the muscles flexing beneath her skin. They will find us. The magnetic field protects for now, but they are persistent. He ran a hand through his hair, feeling a prickle of fear mixed with exasperation. Great. So I'm not just claimed, I'm also suddenly a high-value target because of it. This just keeps getting better. He looked at her, really looked at her in the dim light. The sharp angles of her face, the delicate membranes, the powerful build evident even beneath her armor. She was alien, terrifying, and completely unwavering in her possessiveness. What happens if they do find us? He asked, his voice quiet. We fight, she stated simply, as if it were the only possible outcome. Together. You are claimed, you are my strength, where yours is lacking. I am yours where mine is not. His strength? His strength was scavenging, fixing broken tech, and running like hell. Hers was clearly snapping necks and looking intimidating. My strength is knowing which wires to cut and how to hotwire a rust bucket, he said dryly. Yours, though everything else apparently. She didn't smile, but the light under her skin pulsed in a pattern that might have been amusement. Adaptable, she repeated, a hint of something in her tone he couldn't decipher. She leaned closer, the hum from her throat nodes intensifying. The strange resonance in his head grew stronger, a swirling warmth that made him feel dizzy. Her eyes seemed to glow brighter, fixing on his. We are one unit now. You feel it? The connection. Claiming is not just word. It is state. He did feel it. A strange, undeniable pull towards her. A sense of belonging that was both foreign and unsettling. It was the resonance, the biological lock she'd mentioned. It scared the hell out of him, but it was also compelling. She lifted a hand, removing one of her armored gauntlets to reveal a three-fingered hand with sharp black nails. The skin on her hand was the same earthy brown, the subtle light patterns extending up her arm. She reached out and gently touched his chest, right over his heart. The humming vibrated through his ribs. My life source shared with yours. My protection bound to your form. When they come, we move as one. Her touch lingered, sending shivers down his spine. He could feel the strength in her, the raw power. And it was focused entirely on him. He was trapped, hunted, and claimed by an alien warrior who thought snacks equaled eternal partnership. It was a bizarre, terrifying, and undeniably erotic predicament. The silence in the cave stretched, broken only by the low thrumming of her throat nodes and the distant sound of the wind whipping sand across the canyon rims. Kale could feel her eyes on him, the intensity of her gaze a physical weight in the small space. The resonance between them was a palpable thing now, a silent conversation beneath their skin. He felt hyper-aware of her proximity, the heat radiating from her body, the subtle scent of her. His heart pounded, a frantic rhythm against his ribs. She still had her hand on his chest, her touch a strange mixture of tenderness and proprietary force. "So," he finally managed, his voice a little rough. "This, for the bond, the claiming. What exactly does it entail? Beyond the growling and the procreation plans?" He needed details. He needed to understand the rules of this insane game he was suddenly playing. Her hand shifted, her finger spreading slightly across his chest. The humming nodes vibrated against him, sending a strange sensation through his body. Entails mutual need, mutual defense. Resources are shared. Territory is defined and held. Threats are eliminated. Proximity is maintained. She listed it off like a military briefing. "Proximity is maintained," he repeated, feeling a nervous laugh bubble up. "Like, you're not going to let me leave?" A low growl deeper this time, a clear confirmation. "Leave? Why would units separate? Weakens defense. Invites threat? Impossible." Her golden eyes narrowed. "You are mine. My proximity. You remain where I am." He stared at her, the implications sinking in. He wasn't just claimed. He was effectively imprisoned by a creature who could probably rip him in half without breaking a sweat. "Right, of course." "Silly question," he muttered, feeling a wave of panic. He was a scavenger, a smuggler. Freedom was everything. Being maintained in proximity was his worst nightmare. But the look in her eyes, the possessive intensity, told him she wasn't bluffing. And honestly, with the harvesters outside, trying to run from her seemed significantly more dangerous than staying put. His gaze dropped to her mouth, then lower, to the humming nodes at her throat. They pulsed with light, a fascinating, alien display that drew his eyes. She noticed his gaze. Her hands slid lower on his chest, fingers brushing against the edge of his flight suit. The humming intensified, changing pitch slightly. "You observe form," she stated, not a question. "Curious?" His breath hitched. It was dangerous curiosity. "Yeah," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "It's different. Fascinating." Her hand moved back up, tracing the lines of muscle beneath his suit. Her eyes never left his. Differences observed, explored. Compatibility confirmed through proximity, through touch, through merging. The last word hung in the air, heavy with implication. Merging. She wasn't just talking about survival anymore. His body reacted instinctively, blood rushing south, a sudden, potent heat pooling in his gut. He was a human male stuck in a cave with a dominant alien female who saw him as her claimed property and potential mate, with killers hunting them outside. The danger, the fear, the sheer absurdity of the situation. It was a volatile cocktail that was rapidly dissolving his resistance. Her hand moved higher, fingers brushing the sensitive skin of his neck, near his pulse point. The humming was loud in his ears now, a symphony of possession and biological imperative. She leaned closer, her sense stronger, her golden eyes glowing in the dimness. This wasn't going to end with just talking. He could feel it in the tightening of his muscles, the quickening of his breath, the overwhelming pull of the bond she had triggered with a handful of fried potatoes. The air in the cave vibrated with the intensity of the alien's presence. Her hand on his neck, the humming nodes pressing lightly against his skin, sent tremors through his body. The strange resonance in his head was overwhelming, a dizzying swirl of sensation and raw instinct that drowned out logic and fear. Her eyes, glowing golden in the darkness, held his captive. Merging, she repeated, the word a low hum in his ear. To confirm compatibility, to strengthen bond against threat. She wasn't asking. She was stating purpose, and his body, betrayed by adrenaline and the strange influence of her resonance, was already responding. He was hard, throbbing against his worn suit. A pathetic human reaction to terrifying, irresistible dominance. Confirm compatibility? Is that, son? Is that what you call it? He managed, his voice hoarse. His sarcasm felt weak and hollow against the ancient primal force radiating from her. Her thumb brushed over his Adam's apple, a feather-light touch that made him shudder. It is function. Essential. When two forms are claimed, merging solidifies the unit, activates full protective protocols. She lowered her head slowly, her gaze fixed on his mouth. Her breath, warm and carrying that strange musky scent, fanned across his lips. We merge. Now. She didn't wait for an answer. Her mouth found his, not gently, but with a possessive hunger that mirrored her growl. It was an alien kiss, demanding, tasting of ozone and something wild. Her lips were firm, her tongue surprisingly smooth and quick, exploring his with a primal intensity that stole his breath. Her free hand cupped the back of his head, holding him in place, utterly hers. He was lost, drowning in the sensation, the fear replaced by a surge of raw need. The humming from her throat nodes intensified, vibrating through their joined mouths, through his entire skull. It felt like a current, sinking them, locking the strange bond into place with a physical, undeniable force. His hands, trembling slightly, found their way to her armored shoulders, then slid down her arms, seeking contact with her actual skin. He found seams, latches, the smooth, hard plating of her armor. He wanted to touch her. She seemed to sense it. With a series of soft clicks and whirs, panels on her chest and abdomen retracted, revealing the earthy brown skin beneath, pulsing with vibrant light patterns. It was beautiful, terrifying, and unbelievably erotic. Her skin was warm, smooth, and alive under his hesitant touch. He fumbled with the zipper of his flight suit, his fingers clumsy. She pulled back from the kiss, her breathing audible, the humming a loud thrum. Her golden eyes were dilated, fixed on him with a fierce intensity. Uncover, she commanded, her voice thick with resonance. Join fully. Strengthen bond. Now. He didn't need to be told twice. He tore at his suit, desperate now, shedding the layers separating them. When he was finally free of the restrictive fabric, she leaned in again, her naked torso pressing against his. The contact was electric, her pulsing skin against his, the heat overwhelming. Her hand found him, closing around his erection with a firm, knowing grip. He gasped. The sensation almost too much. Yes, she murmured, a sound of satisfaction that vibrated through him. Compatibility confirmed. Resonance strong. She guided him, lifting his hips, positioning him with effortless strength. There was no seduction, no gentle foreplay. This was a primal act, driven by instinct, danger, and a bond triggered by snack food. She mounted him, her weight surprisingly light given her size, her legs wrapping around his waist. The humming from her throat nodes was a low growl against his ear as she lowered herself onto him, slow, deliberate, taking him in. It was a tight fit, a strange joining of two vastly different forms, but the biological imperative, the resonance, somehow made it work. He cried out as she seated herself fully, a mixture of pain and intense pleasure. She began to move, slow, powerful strokes, her eyes locked on his, her face a mask of intense focus. Bond claimed. Ours, she rasped, the words punctuated by her movements, by the deep, vibrating hum that enveloped them both. He was hers, utterly and completely, and in the heart of the magnetic desert, with killers outside, he was merging with his growling, alien protector. The act of merging with the alien warrior was unlike anything Kale had ever experienced. It wasn't just physical, it was visceral, primal, and overlaid with the strange resonance that vibrated between them. Every thrust, every shared breath, every pulse of light from her skin seemed to tighten the invisible threads that bound them. The humming from her throat nodes wasn't just a sound, it was a feeling, a deep vibration that resonated through his bones, through his very being, sinking him to her on a level he couldn't comprehend. It felt ancient, undeniable, a biological imperative that transcended conscious thought. She moved with tireless, powerful grace, her body responding to an instinct honed over millennia. Her golden eyes remained locked on his, reflecting the shifting patterns of light on her skin, a silent language passing between them. He was no longer the sarcastic scavenger. He was simply a creature responding to the profound, overwhelming force of her claiming. He clung to her, buried deep inside her, feeling the raw power she held over him, over this situation, over this strange, dangerous bond. His climax was intense, explosive, triggered not just by physical pleasure but by the overwhelming surge of resonance, as their biologies impossibly aligned. As he cried out, she let out a deep guttural growl, a sound that vibrated through his core. Her body tensed around him, the muscles coiling tight. The light patterns on her skin flared blindingly bright for a moment, and the humming rose to a piercing frequency that felt like it was rewriting his DNA. He felt a strange internal shift, a click deep within him, as if something fundamental had changed. A wave of warmth spread from his chest, following the path of the resonance, settling deep within his core. It felt like a brand, invisible but indelible. When the light subsided and the humming softened back to a low thrum, she collapsed onto his chest, her breathing heavy. She was still inside him, their bodies joined, the silence of the cave filled only by their ragged breaths. He felt drained, exhilarated, and utterly bewildered. This wasn't just sex. This was something else, something permanent. She stirred, lifting her head. Her golden eyes, no longer dilated, met his. There was something new in them, a depth of connection that hadn't been there before. Bond, sealed, she rasped, her voice softer now, less commanding, though the possessiveness was still there, thrumming beneath the surface. She shifted, carefully extracting herself from him. The separation felt like tearing apart, a physical ache caused by the severance of the intense, shared connection. As she moved away, he saw it. On the skin, over his heart, faintly visible in the dim light, was a subtle pattern of bioluminescence, mimicking the markings on her own skin. It pulsed once, then faded, but he knew it was there, a mark, an alien brand, not on his skin, but somehow within it. And the warmth in his chest remained a constant reminder. He stared at the spot, then at her. What was that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. She met his gaze, her expression unreadable, though the possessiveness in her eyes was clear. The mark of claiming, made visible by merging. It signifies proximity, bond. "That you are mine," she stated it as fact, devoid of fanfare or romance. Just a biological, undeniable reality. He was marked. He was hers, because he shared his fries. And now, because they had merged, the fallout had begun. The physical intensity of the merging faded, leaving behind a strange mix of exhaustion and heightened awareness. Kale lay there, naked and vulnerable in the cramped cave, feeling the ghost of her weight on him, the phantom vibration of her humming nodes against his skin. He looked at the spot over his heart where the bioluminescent mark had appeared, then back at her. She had retrieved her armor, the dark plating a stark contrast to the pulsing patterns on her skin. She was watching him, those golden eyes assessing, calculating. The possessiveness hadn't vanished. It had deepened, become ingrained. The mark, he said, his voice flat. Is it, Udi, permanent? A low thrum from her throat nodes. Permanent. As the bond, it cannot be removed. Only death severs. Death? Great. So he was permanently branded property, detectable somehow by her kind, or maybe even the harvesters. His freedom, already tenuous, had just evaporated. Fantastic, he muttered, sitting up and fumbling for his clothes. The smart-ass facade was cracking, revealing the fear beneath. So what? Now we're bonded mates? Is that it? 'Cause I gotta tell you, this is probably the weirdest courtship ritual in the history of sentient life. She didn't immediately answer. She watched him dress, her gaze lingering on his body, on the spot over his heart. When he was covered again, she spoke, her voice still low and resonant, but with a hint of something he couldn't place. Mates is not precise human term. Claimed as state. Unit is formed. For survival. For procreation. She paused, the light patterns on her skin pulsing slowly. The merging confirmed potential. My biology accepts yours. Rare. Unexpected. Rare? Unexpected? He was a human, she was, but not. Of course it was rare. Unexpected? He repeated, pulling on his boots. So, this wasn't planned? Sharing the fries wasn't a known trigger? A faint growl. Known trigger for established pairings, yes. But not for outsider. Not for your form. It was instinct. Primal. My form responded to the sharing resonance, recognized compatibility, claimed proximity for defense against perceived threat. So the whole insane scenario was an accident. A biological glitch, triggered by convenience food. He could almost laugh at the sheer cosmic absurdity of it, if he wasn't currently marked for life by an alien warrior. Perceived threat? You mean, the here? The harvesters? The harvesters are threat, but sharing sustenance. It is vulnerable act for my kind. Resources are scarce. To offer life source is profound. My form registered your offer, not as discardable gesture, but as potential pooling of resources. As readiness for claiming. As willingness to bond for survival. She looked away for a moment, her gaze fixed on the cave entrance. It activated ancient protocol, before technology. When tribes claimed territory by shared kill, you shared your kill, your life source. His fries were his kill. He felt a fresh wave of disbelief. This was their origin story. Two different species, bound by a shared snack and a biological trigger older than civilizations. And now he was marked, bonded and targeted. Just as that thought settled, a low, grinding sound echoed from outside the cave. Louder than the wind. Mechanical. The harvesters. They were here. Shit, Kale breathed, grabbing his blaster. The alien warrior turned back to him, her golden eyes fierce and determined. Her humming nodes began to thrum faster, louder, the possessive growl returning, stronger than ever, directed outwards at the threat. She stood, drawing a wicked-looking energy blade from a sheath on her thigh. They come, she stated, her voice regaining its commanding edge, to take mine. They will fail, we fight. As unit, claimed. She offered him her free hand, armored fingers opening in a gesture of alliance, of shared purpose. It wasn't romantic. It was survival. Their bond, forged in shared junk food and solidified in desperate passion, was about to be tested by fire. He took her hand. It was time to see what this unit could do. They moved as one, the resonance between them a constant, guiding force. It wasn't telepathy, not exactly, but a deep, instinctual awareness of each other's position, intent, and need. Kale, the scavenger, surprisingly found his role, while the alien, whose name he still didn't know but mentally dubbed Fry Claimer, used her formidable strength and energy blade to carve through the mercenary ranks trying to breach the cave. He used his knowledge of salvage tech. The harvesters had brought drilling equipment and energy cannons. Attempting to crack open their hideout, Kale scrambled through narrow passages, finding weak points in the rock where magnetic fields were thin, luring harvester drones into traps or disabling their heavy weapons with precisely aimed shots from his blaster or improvised EMP charges salvaged from his wreck. Fry Claimer was a force of nature. She moved like liquid shadow, her armor deflecting energy bolts, her blade a blur of focused energy. She didn't just fight, she defended him. If a mercenary got too close, trying to bypass her to reach Cal, the growl would erupt from her throat, and she'd turn with terrifying speed, eliminating the threat with brutal efficiency. It was possessive, yes, but in the heat of battle, it felt like absolute protection. At one point, a massive, heavily armored harvester brute cornered Kale in a side passage. Kale's blaster wasn't doing much against its thick plating. Just as it raised a crushing fist, a dark gray shape slammed into its side. Fry Claimer, ignoring two other mercenaries firing at her, had seen his danger through the strange bond. She ripped through the brute's armor plating with her blade, tearing its weapon arm off with impossible strength, all while letting out a continuous savage growl that echoed through the rock. Then, without pause, she spun and re-engaged the others. "Thanks," Cal yelled, shaking. She didn't respond verbally, but the resonance between them pulsed with something akin to satisfaction. They fought for what felt like hours, the cave echoing with weapon fire, roars, and the alien's persistent growl. Cal was bleeding, bruised, and exhausted, but fueled by adrenaline and the weird, unbreakable connection to his alien protector. He saw her take hits, energy bolts scorching her armor, but she fought on, relentless. The humming nodes at her throat glowed with fierce light. The bioluminescent patterns on her exposed skin pulsed with energy. The mark of claiming on his chest felt hot, vibrating with the same intensity. They weren't just fighting side by side. They were fighting as a single entity, their strengths compensating for each other's weaknesses. His tech skills crippled their heavy gear. Her warrior prowess eliminated the foot soldiers. Slowly, painstakingly, they pushed the harvesters back. Their numbers dwindled. Their attacks became less coordinated. Finally, after a desperate, brutal last stand at the cave entrance, the remaining mercenaries retreated, dragging their wounded. The sound of their dropship lifting off was the sweetest music Kale had ever heard. Silence descended on the canyon, broken only by the wind and their heavy breathing. Kale slumped against the cave wall, his muscles screaming in protest. Fry Claimer stood at the entrance, watching the retreating ship until it vanished over the horizon. The growl subsided, softening back into a low, steady thrum. She turned, looking at Kale. Her armor was scarred, her body likely bruised beneath it, but she was intact. "They flee," she stated, her voice rough. "Threat eliminated. Proximity maintained." She walked over to him, the light patterns on her skin dimming. She knelt down, reaching out a hand, not to help him up, but to place her palm flat on his chest, right over the faint, invisible mark. The warmth returned, spreading through him, calming the frantic beat of his heart. Her golden eyes, tired but still fiercely bright, held his. "You fought well," she murmured, the low hum underlying her words. For a small form, adaptive. It wasn't exactly praise, but from her, it felt like a commendation. And it was accompanied by a distinct feeling through the resonance. Not pride exactly, but a deep-seated satisfaction, a reinforcement of the claimed status validated by shared danger and mutual survival. He looked at her, at the formidable warrior who had growled over his fries and then fought like hell to protect him. "You too," he said, a genuine smile touching his lips despite the pain. Not bad for someone who thinks potatoes are a marriage contract. She didn't smile, but the resonance pulsed with something that felt suspiciously like dry amusement. The harvesters were gone. For now, the bond was permanent. He was claimed. His life was irrevocably changed. But, for the first time since crash landing, he didn't feel completely alone. The immediate danger had passed, leaving behind the quiet aftermath of violence. Kale and the alien woman rested in the cave, the silence occasionally broken by their breathing or the settling of debris outside. The resonance between them remained, a low hum in the air, a constant reminder of their strange, unbreakable bond. Kale looked at her, truly seeing her not just as a terrifying alien, but as the fierce protector who had just saved his life multiple times. "Hey," he said softly. She turned her head, those golden eyes meeting his. "My name is Kale," he offered. "I'm human, smartass, scavenger, unlucky trader. Now, apparently, you're," claimed. He waited. She watched him for a long moment, the humming from her throat nodes a soft vibration. Then she spoke, her voice a low resonance. "I am Satari, of the Dune Stalkers, Enforcer." Satari, it fit. Dunestalker, also fit. Enforcer? That explained the armor and the fighting skills. Zodari, he repeated. Trying the name out, it felt right. "So, Satari, what happens now? They'll be back, right? Those harvesters." She nodded. "They seek valuable property." "The claimed are valuable." "Yes, they will return. With more force." Grim, but expected. "And we stay together? Because of the bond?" "Mark?" He touched his chest, where the mark was. The mark signifies the claiming. The bond is the state. We are unit. Units remain whole for survival. It wasn't a choice for her. It was biological and cultural imperative, validated by instinct and combat. "Right. Unit," he sighed, leaning his head back against the cave wall. He was trapped. Permanently. But she had fought for him, risked her life for him, and there was that confusing sense of belonging that the resonance provided. "Look, Zatari, I don't know anything about your culture, about these bonds. My life was about not being tied down, about being free." He met her gaze, trying to convey the depth of his reluctance, his fear of losing himself. She listened, her expression unreadable, but the resonance shifted. A subtle change that felt like through understanding, or perhaps just processing the input. "Freedom is inefficient for survival in harsh zones," she stated. "Unit provides strength, resources, protection. What is yours becomes ours. What is mine becomes ours. Survival is shared. Procreation is shared." She returned to the procreation point. Cal rubbed his temples. "The procreation thing, that's still on the table? Even after all this?" A low thrum. Affirmative. Essential function of unit. Biological imperative. Confirmed. Compatibility. She paused, tilting her head. The light patterns on her skin pulsed gently. "Your reluctance," noted, "but instinct overrides. For both forms, the merging confirmed this. You felt it, the joining." He had. Deeply, and the memory of it, the raw, intense connection, was still potent. He couldn't deny the biological pull, the way his body had responded, the profound sense of being completed, even for a brief time. "Yeah," he admitted quietly. "I felt it." She leaned closer, her golden eyes searching his face. "The mark is truth. The bond is truth. They are part of you now. Part of me. We are claimed, together." She reached out, her hand finding his, intertwining her fingers with his. The contact sent a jolt through him, reinforcing the bond. This wasn't the life he'd planned. Not even close. But looking into Zuntari's eyes, feeling the strength in her grip, the low thrum of her resonance matching the warmth in his chest, he knew there was no going back. He was claimed by a growling alien warrior because he'd shared his fries. And somehow, against all logic, he felt they were a unit. A strange, bonded pair of a human scavenger and an alien enforcer, united by a cosmic accident and facing a dangerous future. But for the first time in a long time, Kale felt he wasn't facing it alone. He was hers, and she was definitely his. And if anyone else came close, they'd have to deal with the growling. They emerged from the cave the next morning as the twin suns painted the magnetic desert in hues of gold and rust. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of the strange metallic sands. Zatari, back in her full armor, walked with her usual predatory grace, but she stayed close to Kale, the resonance between them a comforting presence. He felt the mark of claiming warm beneath his clothes, a constant connection to her. They needed to move, find a way off this rock, or at least find a more defensible position before the harvesters returned. As they navigated the canyons, Kale felt a low hum from Zitari, a different tone than her usual growl. He looked at her questioningly. "My form senses proximity," she stated, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. "Not threat," other claimed. Other claimed? More of her people? He felt a mix of relief and apprehension. Would they accept him, or would his accidental bond with an enforcer cause more problems? They moved towards the source of the resonance. They crested a ridge and saw a small convoy of armored vehicles, similar in design to Zitari's armor, moving across the sand. They were met by a patrol of dune stalkers, their armor bearing the same rippling patterns as Zitari's. The moment they saw Zitari and Kale together, the lead stalker stopped, its headpiece retracting to reveal a face similar to Zitari's, but older, marked by scars. Its golden eyes widened, fixing on Kale, then Zentari. A low, resonant hum, questioning, came from its throat nodes. Zentari stepped forward, placing a hand on Kale's shoulder, pulling him slightly closer. The possessive growl, low but clear, vibrated through the resonance to Kale. She was making her claim explicit to her own kind. "Enforcer Zentari reports," she stated, her voice ringing with authority. "Threat engaged. Eliminated. Proximity compromised. Recalibration necessary." She paused, then added, her voice dropping slightly, the resonance intensifying towards Kale. "Form claimed. Unit established. Biological compatibility confirmed." She didn't explain the fries. She didn't explain the accident. She stated the outcome as established fact. The lead stalker, a large male with a scarred face, focused its intense gaze on Kale. Kale felt exposed, scrutinized. The stalker's throat nodes vibrated with a powerful hum, assessing, questioning. Then, slowly, the stalker extended a hand, mirroring Zentari's earlier gesture. It was a sign of acceptance, of recognition. Kale hesitated for a fraction of a second, then reached out and took the offered hand. The stalker's grip was firm, strong, and through the contact, Kale felt a surge of resonance, a confirmation from another of Zentari's kind that the bond was real, recognized, accepted. "The claimed one," the stalker rumbled, the sound echoing the depth of Zentari's own resonance. "Protected by Zentari, accepted into proximity." It wasn't a warm welcome, not by human standards. It was a declaration of status, a recognition of the bond's validity within their culture. Kale looked at Sari, who stood beside him, a silent, possessive presence. She hadn't smiled, hadn't softened, but the fierce protectiveness in her eyes, amplified by the acceptance of her people, was a powerful anchor in this alien world. His life, as a freewheeling scavenger, was over. He was claimed. He was part of a unit. He was hers, and she, in her own terrifying, growling way, was his. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and tied irrevocably to this fierce alien woman, and the strange bond initiated by shared junk food. But as Zentari's hand found his and intertwined their fingers, and the low, possessive growl rumbled in her chest as the other stalkers approached, Kale knew one thing for sure: he wasn't alone anymore. And he wouldn't be. Not ever again.